Welcome once again to our program As We Agree. In last series, we were talking and discussing with Dr. Callahan Ding from Canada regarding the matter of same-sex marriage, and he told us his opinion, what it was. Today, we meet the good man, best man in my eyes, Mr. David Clarke, a member of New South Wales Legislative Council, Parliamentary Secretary for Justice. Welcome, Mr. Clarke.
Well, Sam, thank you very much, and it's a great joy to be here today.
Thank you. You know, you are here to talk about same-sex marriage.
Yes.
Actually, it's a very big issue people are talking about. So, what's your opinion about the same-sex marriage, and what's your view about it?
Well, I oppose same-sex marriage, 100%. I will never vote to legalise same-sex marriage. And I say this, that right throughout history, in every culture, in every nation, in every religious faith tradition, even today, overwhelmingly since the records were kept on mankind, marriage has been traditional marriage between a man and a woman.
Yeah. I would ask you, they say, what could be wrong with affirming two people's love and a commitment to each other?
Well, where do you stop? Why couldn't you confirm three people's love for each other? Why wouldn't you then move on to polygamous marriage? Why would it be restricted to two people? Why would it not be three people or four people or five people who have a polygamous marriage? Why wouldn't it be three men and two women? So the thing is this, there is a natural law throughout recorded history, and there's a natural law that is accepted by all the faith traditions, and they see that the basis of society and good families is the traditional marriage between man and a woman.
But isn't it discrimination if we say that it's illegal for two men or two women to marry?
No, not at all. Every man is entitled to marry, and every woman is entitled to marry. We have exactly the same rights. They are entitled to marry, but it's to someone from the opposite sex, and we all have the same rights in that regard. So this idea, people talk about marriage equality, is actually very, very misleading. Very misleading. They shouldn't talk about marriage equality. They should talk about same-sex marriage, because they deliberately set out to confuse the situation and say that it's about the issue of equality. Everybody has exactly the same rights, and that's to marry somebody of the of the opposite sex, and that is what marriage has always meant in every society and culture since the beginning of history.
But they are looking for the equality as human beings. So they want to have the rights, and they want to make it legal marriage.
Yes.
And they want the government to accept it and the community to accept it with happiness.
Well, look, one of the main results of marriage is children, and I and people who think the same way as I do on this issue believe that it is far better for children to be brought up in a traditional family. Now, that's not always possible. We get widows who are bringing up children, and they do very well. Yeah. But the optimum, the optimum result, on the whole, is the children be brought up with a father and a mother. As I say, it's not always possible, and there may be children who are raised in same-sex households, and they may be cared for and loved just as much as a child in a traditional family, but the fact is that the optimum is for children, and they do best of all, on the whole, in a traditional family situation.
If two men married, Where is the woman right in such case?
Well,
Because in marriage there is something called woman rights.
yes, you're talking
So-
about women's rights.
Women's rights. In each marriage there
Yes.
is something called women rights,
Yes.
and in the house. But if they are two men are married, there is nothing called women rights.
Yes. Look. All I can say to that is that.
I don't know. One of them should be a woman, or in the front of law, or what?
Well, look, that's the thing that I'm standing for, and that the great majority in the world believe in, that a marriage should be equally between a man and a woman, and I believe in that situation that they have equal rights, absolutely, in that marriage. One thing to remember is that when we're talking this idea that this is a big issue, it is a big issue.
Yeah.
But of the 197 countries in the United Nations, only 21 have same-sex marriage. Only 21. There's only one country in all of Africa that allows a same-sex marriage. There are no countries in Asia that allow it. Most countries in Europe still oppose same-sex marriage. So it is still a minority, I believe, who are pushing for same-sex marriage. And in the United States, it was introduced not by a popular vote of the Congress, not through referendum. It was brought in by a Supreme Court on one vote. One person actually decided the future history of marriage in the United States. In fact, judges are not there to write law; they're there to interpret the law. They're not those who write the law are in the parliaments and legislatures.
Okay, but people who support the same-sex marriage say to us, it's none of your business. We want to marry each other. What upsets you?
Okay, well, look, those people who say it's none of your business, but on other questions they wouldn't say it's none of your business. People who think that we shouldn't be allowed to smoke in restaurants. If you want to go and smoke in a restaurant and other people want to stop you, you say, well,
No, harm others.
Well, what business? What is the business of others? Well, because these things affect everybody around us. Marriage and what the format of marriage is will affect children brought up in that household. So it does affect other people. There are third parties affected by it, and you know, we live in a society. We don't live in a cocoon by ourselves. We live in a society where people work and integrate together, and so it does affect everybody.
But according to what you said, that if they didn't adopt children, they will not affect people. They will not affect the community.
Well, the situation is that they are insisting that they do be allowed to adopt children. So when you find that there is same-sex marriage, you will find that it will very quickly follow that they will be able to adopt children. And that is what's happened in the United Kingdom, for instance. You have same-sex marriage, and they have the right to adopt children, so the two are bound together.
Yeah. Prime Minister Tony Abbott still want to play down chances for the same-sex marriage vote.
Yes.
But Obama, on the other hand, Obama supports it.
Yes.
So.
Well, the difference is Obama, it has never been put to the people of the United States in a free vote. In fact, I think a majority of states in the United States have had a referendum and they have voted against same-sex marriage. The majority of states. In the biggest state, California, which is a very trendy state, very small L liberal, it a number of years ago voted against same-sex marriage, even though the 10 biggest newspapers in California were all for same-sex marriage, and in the referendum they had far more money to advertise, and the people of California voted against same-sex marriage, and then one single federal judge overrules the will of the people. So you will find that Obama is for same-sex marriage, but it has never been put to, where it has been put to the vote, invariably it has been defeated. What Tony Abbott is saying is that we went, the coalition, and I'm part of the coalition, the Liberal National Party government in New South Wales, but in the federal sphere, the coalition government in the last election went on a policy of opposing same-sex marriage. And Tony Abbott is saying, I'm not going to go to the electorate, I'm not going to go back on my promise. We went on that promise of opposing same-sex marriage, and I'm going to continue to do that.
But you still think that a referendum going to be in Australia about that matter?
Well, I don't know what the result is going to be, but one thing is for sure, I don't want courts deciding, as they have in the United States.
Yeah, it happened.
It happened there, and that was very wrong because the people were deprived of deciding for themselves. In fact, effectively, one person who was appointed by Obama to the Supreme Court, that was a tight decision, 5-4. One person has decided the outcome of the marriage in the future, not the people of the United States. The people should decide the result, certainly not courts.
So, do you think that the Liberal Party has something to do to stop it?
Well, the Liberal Party went to the last federal election with a very definite policy of opposing same-sex marriage. Now, we don't want to be in the situation where, for instance, Julia Gillard went to an election 2 elections ago saying we will not have a carbon tax, and then she introduced a carbon tax. She broke her promise, and the coalition government doesn't want to break its promise that it gave to the people in the last election to oppose same-sex marriage.
Actually, after Julia Gillard, many promises were broken, but regarding this matter, I will talk about the same-sex marriage only. So, do you think that we can do something to stop the same-sex marriage, as not just as Liberal Party, but I'm talking about the human being, the people in Australia? Do they have to do something to stop it? Do you think, what's your view?
Well, first of all, all of the major religious faith traditions in Australia are opposed to same-sex marriage. Christian, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, Buddhist, Judaism, they are all opposed to same-sex marriage. And for those who oppose same-sex marriage, to stop it, they should be contacting their federal members of parliament and saying, if you vote for same-sex marriage, we will vote against you in the election. They need to make their views known. They need to write to members of parliament and tell them what they think. They should not let the media do the talking for them. They should not let the media do the talking for them. They should speak up themselves. And at the end of the day, they've got the power of their vote, and they should use it, and they should tell those members of parliament who have said they'll come out and vote for it, they'll say, well, you vote for it, we'll vote against you. And remember, the great majority of countries in the world reject same-sex marriage. Only a few days ago, Austria voted in its parliament overwhelmingly against same-sex marriage. As I said, there's only one country in all of Africa, and that's South Africa, that allows same-sex marriage. No country in the Middle East, no country in Asia, no country in Central America. So it's overwhelmingly the number of countries opposing it is far greater than those who support it.
So are you against that 2 men or 2 women live together, or you are against the same-sex marriage as a legal matter?
I'm against it as a legal matter. So it's none of my business that the people live together. Two women live together or 2 men live together. That is their private business. It doesn't affect the concept of marriage traditional marriage. It doesn't affect children, and they're entitled to exercise their freedom in doing that. You see, the interesting thing is this. The people who are pushing same-sex marriage say, we will not force religious people with religious views to have to accept it. We won't force the churches or you know, those who in other faiths as well to have to support it. They say that now, but we find that if it goes through, the next thing they'll be saying is, oh no, we now require churches to have to marry people. I mean, you have in the United States now companies that, you know, cake shops being prosecuted because they won't make a wedding cake for a same-sex marriage, because they say it would be against their religious convictions. So it's a slice at a time. They say, oh no, the churches and other faiths, Muslims and so forth, they'll all be safe. They won't be forced to accept same-sex marriage, but that's in fact what will happen down the track. No risk about that. It's happening overseas, and it would happen here if we allowed same-sex marriage.
Yeah. So now if I ask Mr. Clarke, you are against the same-sex marriage as a man, as a Christian, or as a member of Liberal Party?
Well, on several grounds. First of all, because whatever party I would be in, I would be opposing it. I know members of the Labor Party, including Labor members of Parliament, who are also opposed to it in the state Parliament and then in the federal Parliament. I was talking to a couple of them only a few days ago, and there are people in the Labor Party as well who oppose it. It's got nothing to do with parties, and I'm religious. I'm practicing Christian, but even if I wasn't a practicing Christian, if I was even an atheist, I would not be supportive of same-sex marriage, because it is against the natural law of society. The natural law of society, as shown by the fact that it has never been accepted by any culture or society as a whole in recorded history up until recent years.
The last thing I ask you, is there a message you want to forward to any party or any individual man?
Well, look, only to say this, that I know that in ethnic communities, and including the Arabic-speaking Australian community, the opinion polls show that they are overwhelmingly opposed to same-sex marriage.
Sure.
So they should stand firm on that. They should not be misled by misleading advertisements that say this is all about marriage equality. It's not about marriage equality. It's about whether we believe in same-sex marriage or not. And so they should make their views known to their members of Parliament, where they stand, and they should not give in, and they should not be browbeaten and be misled into believing that everybody around them is for it, and there's something odd about them in opposing it. We have history on our side. We have the natural law on our side. Even now, the great majority of nations in the world won't have a bar of same-sex marriage, and I'm proud to be a part of a party that went to the federal election last time opposed to same-sex marriage, and I think that Tony Abbott is giving great leadership to the nation, and to consistency in practicing and doing what he has said he would do, and that's to oppose same-sex marriage. And so I would say to your listeners and to the readers of the newspapers that you produce, and you know you have a fine record of doing that over many decades. I know you're the leading Arabic-speaking group in Australia that does this. I would say to your readers and your listeners and your viewers to stand firm on this and to make your views known to your members of Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. David Clarke. May God bless you, and you are welcome again in our program as we agree in the Australian Middle East Media.
Well, Sam, any time at all, it's been a great pleasure to be here today with you. And
Thank
all the
you
rest
very
of your
much.
listeners.
Thank you, everybody. And later on, we're going to continue the same subject about the same-sex marriage with other guests. And thank you, and see you later. Bye.